The views and content expressed on the following program are provided solely for informational and entertainment purposes. They do not constitute legal advice. A podcast is not a substitute for retaining a competent, licensed attorney to advise you on your specific legal situation.
Break the business, play is work and work is play. Power into creators, have fun along the way. Break the business, doing what it takes. Celebrate success and learn from the mistakes.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the show. It is time for Break the Business, where we empower indie creators and have some fun along the way. I'm Ryan Kairalla, and it is a pleasure to have you here this week. It really is a pleasure. I am in a fabulous mood this week because let me tell you, this little Break the Business community, this humble little community that we got going, it's growing, man. It is growing because, not because of anything I did, because I'm so lazy when it comes to promotion. We're not paying for ads. This is all word of mouth, folks. This is you guys making this community happen. And I can tell you, the numbers are growing, and most importantly, the communication's growing. My email inbox, breakthebusiness@gmail.com, by the way, absolutely flooded. More and more people every week asking questions for us to answer on the show, just giving general comments, just getting conversations going. And let me tell you, I answer every single one, even at the expense of like my own personal time. If you take the time to reach out, of course I want to reach out back to you because I love the community we're having. And am I being overwhelmed by the emails? Absolutely. But do I want you to keep them coming? You better believe it. And let's bring on one person that I'm particularly thrilled to have in our little Break the Business community. That is our co-host this week, Ms. Katie Zaccardi. Hey, Katie.
Hello. I'm going to email you every day, Ryan.
That's all I ask. It's all I ask. We love the chatter. We love the conversation about empowering indie creators. I know it's a conversation you love having as much as I do. So absolutely love to talk to you on this podcast or off it. I've been told, Katie, that you have that, right now, I can say that you look remarkably poised. You look like you're ready to do a show. But you told me before the show that you have every reason to not be poised and ready because at any moment you could be faced with a natural disaster. Am I being accurate on this point?
Hopefully not, but yes, I am under a tornado watch, which does not mean that I am in the path of a tornado. I'm from New York. I just moved to Nashville. So this is like my first experiences of having to deal with tornadoes, and I don't know what to do. But I keep checking like Nash severe weather. So if you see me like glancing at my phone or if I just disappear, it's because I have to take cover. So far, so good though. I don't think it's going to happen. We've just got some like crazy thunderstorms happening right here. So, but we're hanging in.
So now you got me worried.
No, it's okay. You don't
like
have to be
you're
worried.
doing this program, you're helping give information to indie creators, and at any moment, like we could see you just like get completely swept up in an F5.
No.
Like
if the sirens start going, then I will go into the stairwell. But like otherwise, I think it's fine, and I don't think it's coming this direction anyway. It's just wind, so we're good to go. Don't worry.
So if it does get to that point, like you are going to take the webcam and the mic with you, right? Like we're going to see this in the real time. Like we'll turn this whole thing into a storm chasing podcast.
Full reporter. I'll take you into the hall. There's a lot of musicians in my building, so maybe we'll get a performance out of them if people aren't traumatized.
This episode's going to do numbers, man. I love it. Our guest this week, excited to have her on in the next segment, Sarah Elizabeth Haynes. She is an indie singer-songwriter with great music, and that's enough of a reason to like her. But for the little cherry on top that I know is going to make people want to stick around, she is the violinist and viola player for the touring company of Hamilton. Easily like my favorite musical ever. So it's going to take every ounce of energy I have, Katie, to not just go complete Hamilton nerd on that interview and actually ask her questions about moving your career forward. Are you a Hamilton fan as well?
I am. And I took a little while to get on the bandwagon because I didn't want to listen to the soundtrack until I saw it on Broadway, which is totally a New York privilege because I had that access living in New York. But as soon as I listened to it, I was so hooked, and I feel like I know every word to that soundtrack to this day.
What I love about that soundtrack, because I was with you too. I was like, no, I don't want to get spoiled by the soundtrack. I want to experience it for the first time. And then I looked up how much tickets cost on Broadway, and I was like, let me just get that on the streaming service.
The soundtrack sounds really good right now.
Right.
Like,
and what's nice about the Hamilton soundtrack is like 99% of the show is embodied in the soundtrack. There is unlike other musicals where there's song, dialogue. Hamilton's almost an opera. Almost every square inch of that musical is music. And so you can listen to the soundtrack and basically get the show.
Which are my favorite types of musicals. Les Mis is like my other type of musical. And I honestly love when it's just all music. Like it just keeps rolling along, and Hamilton does it so well.
Yes, it's a truly remarkable show, and must be an interesting challenge for a musician to confront, because there's so many genres in one in this particular show, right? It's not like it's all the same kind of music. You get hip hop, you're going to get like Beatles pop when, King George comes out. You get, typical pop, you get rock. And so I would imagine that a violinist has got to be pretty dang versatile to handle that particular program. So I'm excited to hear about her experience with that.
Me too. I'm really excited.
Yeah. All right. So we got that coming up, and she's got a new album coming out, by the way, when she's not making our hearts sing with by playing Hamilton every night. She is also a terrific indie musician in her own right. She's got a new album out called Castaway. It's really delightful. We're going to talk to her all about that, get some great advice from her along the way. But first, I want to talk a little bit of music news with you, Katie, and just some general entertainment news. Last time we had you on, we had a pretty delightful discussion, and you had some pretty impassioned feelings about Spotify's Discovery Mode, which, this feature that Spotify is rolling out, where they are basically allowing musicians who upload their music to the platform to get a little bit of a boost on the Spotify algorithm to put their music in more people's ears in exchange for taking a cut of Spotify's already microscopically low royalty rate. And you had some thoughts and feelings about this, I remember.
I just don't, from a business perspective, I just don't understand the strategy of making money and paying people. Like, I just feel like musicians aren't getting paid what they need to get paid. So I'm wondering, what's the business model here to support them? And I'm skeptical.
Well, that skepticism is shared very much by this other microphone here. I'm with you on that. And we are not alone, because joining us in that skepticism are members of the U.S. House of Representatives. Since you and I spoke about this, members of Congress, this is according to Variety, members of Congress Yvette Clarke, Judy Chu, and Tony Cardenas wrote a letter to Spotify CEO Daniel Ek, pointing out the concerns that they had with Discovery Mode. So there are an increasing number of lawmakers that just don't think that this feature smells right. And what they were concerned about, because last time we were talking about this, Sarah, about a month ago, our concerns were in the realm of, this just seems like a way for artists to make less money and Spotify to make more money. And if all of the artists are just kind of doing this, then it's just a race to the bottom. And, if everybody's getting the same boost, then there's not really a boost, and just Spotify's paying people less. But what these lawmakers brought up, which I think is an interesting perspective, is they had concerns about the transparency of all of this from two perspectives. One, they talked about how if this feature is going to be fair, Spotify should publish for musicians all of the tracks that are enrolled in Discovery Mode and what the exact discount that they're getting, so that musicians can make an actual informed decision. So you can say to yourself, okay, should I do this? Well, all my competitors in my genre are doing this, so I should do this too to be able to compete against them. Otherwise, you're kind of flying blind. It's what they call in the letter that they wrote, a prisoner's dilemma. But it's not just about the transparency for the creators. The real concern that the members of Congress had, and I didn't even think of this, but I guess that's why they make the big bucks over in the U.S. House, is they were concerned about consumer transparency. So think of it this way. You're listening to Spotify, right? And when you're getting songs picked for you by Spotify, you're assuming that you're getting this song picked for you because it has examined all your tastes in music. It's listened to everything else that you've listened to. And it's saying that based on everything you've listened to and everything that we know about you, because we're like harvesting all your data, we know that this next song we're going to play is exactly what you want to hear. But with discovery mode, now you as a consumer should be asking yourself, am I getting this track because it is absolutely the track I should be listening to? Or am I getting this track because it's being algorithmically boosted? Is there another track I'd be hearing right now, but for that boosting? And so that's something that the legislators are concerned about, because that's a transparency issue. Because if you are getting tracks sent to you because, it's been boosted, that sounds a lot like an ad, right? Like when you're on TikTok, right? When one of your favorite influencers on TikTok is basically taking one of their videos and is hawking a product, they have to say that's an ad. That's a law. And so this is kind of the same thing. Like, you're not getting this content because it's actually the content you should be listening to. You're getting it because it's basically been paid for you to listen to. And so that's the kind of thing where they're, the members of Congress are like, that sounds like it'd be legally questionable. We have laws that say if you're going to advertise to consumers that people are essentially getting paid programming, you have to tell consumers that they're getting paid programming. Mary Amber, writing in the comments there, everyone will do it. There will be no boost. Yeah, is that not what Spotify's really trying to do here? They know that everyone will do it. And so they'll get, everybody will get the same push they were getting before, and they're just going to get paid slightly less. And, that gets back to what the legislators were saying about transparency.
And then the consumer is like listening to a worse playlist because it's not the algorithm. It's just basically all songs that were boosted.
Oh, man. Yeah. And that would create a far less enjoyable experience for me. So this is like a lose-lose. The artists lose in this transaction. I bumped my mic just now. The consumers lose in this transaction. And the only one who wins is Spotify, because they're the ones who know all of the information about who's being boosted and how much of a discount they're paying because of that boosting. Right. And they're not sharing it with anybody. And it's an increasing number of our legislators are not loving that particular outcome.
I don't blame them, and I hope that this gets squashed, to be honest, or that they find like a different way to make this make more sense. But I will say this, that Spotify keeps me mad, except for the fact that its algorithm is the best out of all of the music streaming platforms. So it's so frustrating that I want to stop supporting them, except I can't.
Well, that's what's, to me, because you talked earlier about this being bad business for Spotify and because it might make consumers upset. And I think that's the reason why. When I think of a platform like Spotify, what makes it so good? It's algorithm. When I think of TikTok, what makes TikTok so good? It's algorithm. The fact that it knows so much about your listening habits and it can give you the exact video that you want to see. You start messing with that experience. You start giving people content where they're not sure, am I getting this content because it's the right thing for me, or because you're trying to boost something and effectively give me like a commercial as opposed to the art that I want to enjoy? That's when you could really start to lose consumers. They got to be careful about this.
And I think that they already are on the not so great sides of a lot of people because of how badly they pay, because of them favoring like podcasters over musicians and things like that, that if they start to make tweaks like this that will make the user experience worse, it's just going to give people that impetus that they need to actually leave. So I would be treading very carefully if I were Spotify. Unfortunately, they are this huge company that they'll probably figure it out or survive it or whatever it is. But yeah, I definitely think it's something we need to keep talking about and be diligent about, because it's like, how long is this going to go on until somebody actually says, like, you can't do this anymore. You can't keep screwing. Am I allowed to say that? Messing with musicians. Yeah. I don't know what's allowed. You can't keep messing with musicians and just expecting it to be okay.
Well, it's something it's something that I teach to my business ethics students, is the idea that you don't, like, it's not generally a good business practice to let what is legal and what is not legal determine what you do. Like if law is the floor, you want to be above that floor. And, obviously because it's the right thing to do, blah, 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 morality. But the other reason why you do it is if you don't regulate yourself, if you don't police yourself, the government's going to do it for you, and you're not going to like the way they do it. So,
True.
like, who do you want regulating you? Your own company, the people who actually know your platform and are experts, or a bunch of like old boomer Congress members who don't know how your algorithm works, and they're going to start messing with it on your behalf because you made them angry. Like, you always, like, as a tech company or as any business, like, do the right thing, or else a bunch of old boomers who don't understand technology are going to do it for you, and you're not going to like the way they do it.
Excellent point. Excellent point.
And
I have nothing to say to that.
And they should be listening to your insight, Katie. Like, look, they might be big and you might be small, but you got the insight. And I think the clearest example of that bearing out lately is I heard that you have a new quiz that you came out with to share this insight with the creators. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Oh, I do. Wow, what a segue.
I had that one written down. Yeah, I was ready for that.
I just launched a quiz this week, or last week actually, a week ago today, and it is called the Artist Brand DNA Quiz, and it's for musicians to figure out their artist brand. And there's 6 archetypes that you can be. It started from a theory that I had that stems from the idea that, like, we're in the age of the personal brand right now. So it's not just about like your genre, it's not about your colors. In order to grow and connect with people online, you've got to have a personal brand, meaning you've got to take you and box it up into a brand package, for lack of a better word. And so this quiz is going to help you figure out which archetype you are, which is sort of like that overall theme and mission that you have as a brand, and then you can kind of specify within that.
Oh, I dig this. And you're so right about that it's the entertainment industry that we're in is less about the stuff that you make and more about who you are. The who you are, the brand is just as important to the fans as the stuff that you create. So like it's a quiz that you take to figure out, like, what are some of the archetypes?
So there's 6 of them. So we've got the romantic, the inspiration, the advocate, the entertainer, the observer, and the party animal. So I can go into them too if you want, like, the scoop on each. But
I definitely like to know the party animal.
So the party animal,
like, we all want to know the party animal archetype.
Yeah. And I'll say as well that this basically takes into account during the quiz, and just like in the creation of this in general, it takes into account several things. It takes into account the actual music that musicians write. Again, not necessarily about the genre, or not about the genre at all, but the content of it, like the types of songs, the lyrical content, the impetus and inspiration behind it. And it also takes into consideration who they are as a person. Like, who are you as a person? What are you passionate about? What do you like to talk about online and in person and beyond? So the party animal archetype is basically people whose goal is to really have fun. On their platform, they basically encourage people to, like, let loose, live their lives a little, like, experience new things, enjoy being young, those kinds of things. And their, like, top 3 qualities are basically fun, curiosity, and sociability. So if you're an artist and you really value or embody those 3 things, this might be you. Some examples that I love to give are like Kesha, especially like 2009 era Kesha, where she was just like full party. Miley Cyrus, Katy Perry,
Ryan Kairalla,
Yeah, Ryan Kairalla, how can I forget? Bruno Mars, like, those are some mainstream examples that I think are party animals.
And so once a creator ascertains their archetype, is the idea that there's some actionable steps that you should take now that you kind of know what box you fit in?
Yeah, well, it kind of helps to answer that question. It does help to answer that question, like, what do I post? Or how do I connect with people? I know on TikTok and a lot of coaches will be like, you have to provide value. But then there's this big question of, how do I provide value? Like, what even is value? Well, value is really just, I actually like to refer more to the word provide. Like, what are you providing and how are you connecting with people? So this archetype will help you hone in on that. If you're the party animal, you're going to be probably showcasing a lot of the fun things that you're doing and connecting with your audience around doing these things and having these experiences. If you're the entertainer, you probably are either very theatrical or very funny, and you're you're entertaining. Now, do all musicians entertain? Yes. But are all musicians like doing skits or like, again, like embodying these sort of qualities? No, that's going to be specific to the entertainer. Whereas the inspiration, they're probably going to be people who get up there and like, they've got like their motivational, videos that they can do or stories to share with lessons. And they're really out there to inspire people. And that's how they're connecting with other people. So helps you identify how you want to connect with people, your mission, and then you can go and create content from that.
I dig this. Where can people find this? This is on your personal website?
Yep. katiezaccardi.com/quiz.
I like Lauren. If you are listening there, producer Lauren, I mean, I know you're trying to do 1,000 things right now, including getting Sarah Elizabeth Haynes ready to come on the air after the break. She'll be here in just a minute. Can Lauren, can you take this quiz now? Like, can we know your archetype by the end of this show?
Yes. Do it.
Because like, yeah, I mean, I have to know. I'm guessing it's maybe she's a party animal. Not sure. Wouldn't have. Yeah, she's shaking her head. Do you have a guess? What do you think Lauren is? Like, you've worked with her on a few of these episodes now. What archetype does she give you the vibe of?
She's probably an entertainer.
Yeah.
I think she's probably an entertainer.
Well,
but I'm curious to see what she gets.
Can you go to katiezaccardi.com, Lauren? Let us know by the end of the show what you come up with. And that's what we call in the radio business a teaser. Now people are going to hang on for the rest of the broadcast and find out what our producer's brand type is. All right. We're going to have Sarah Haynes coming up. But before we do that, wanted to talk to you about podcasting. I think that's one area of indie creation that we don't give enough love to on this program. And that's criminal because obviously, like, this is what we do. And it's what more and more creators are doing, including musicians. Like, I see a lot of them kind of starting their own podcast, and it's a welcome development. And I would say of all the podcast genres out there, Katie, the one that I think is sucking the most people in are probably these true crime podcasts. Hulu had a show out with Martin Short and Selena Gomez called and Steve Martin called Only Murders in the Building.
I still need to watch that.
You should. It is great. And it's all about like people's like almost unhealthy obsessions with these true crime podcasts. And it's delightful. But, people can't, consume these things fast enough. And so for true, and by the way, it is a great area for indie creators to get into because, making these true crime podcasts is not a lot of, there's not a lot of startup costs behind it. You don't need a lot of equipment. What you need is a really good story. You need a true crime to use as your source material and build a podcast around. But as more and more of these true crime podcasts are emerging, we're seeing this troubling trend where a lot of reporters and researchers who spend a lot of time researching these true crime cases, writing exhaustive articles about them to basically bring these things into the world, they're now accusing podcasters of basically plagiarizing the articles that they researched and turning them into true crime podcasts. So the latest example of this, on April 11th, author and journalist Brendan Kerner took to Twitter accusing the true crime podcast series Soldier of Misfortune of ripping off a news story that this person wrote, that Kerner wrote for The Atlantic, through the podcast produced by filmmaker Jesse Rappaport. It's about the real-life story of career fraudster Bobby Joe Cassie. And Kerner claims in his tweets that the program borrows heavily from his article without attribution. This is quoted from the tweet here. The creator pretended like she'd done tons of painstaking research when in fact she just used my book as a quasi-screenplay. She even read whole passages verbatim. The end result was a podcast that's essentially an ad-sponsored rival to my audiobook. And practices like these are becoming more and more common in podcasting, especially because these true crime podcasts are becoming wildly popular. And in a lot of ways, the podcasting medium, while popular, super unregulated right now. A lot of these independent podcasts, there's no editorial, there's no editor, there's no legal department that you got to run your podcast by. And so a lot of this stuff slips through the cracks, and it's a big problem right now, because if you're talking to the podcasters about this, they're going to say, what am I doing wrong? You don't get to own a copyright to a real live story. I'm just telling the story, And
Yeah.
your source material is one of the sources I'm consulting.
Yes, yeah.
And the reporters are saying, I spent months, years researching this story. And you're not just retelling my story in your own words, you are borrowing heavily from portions of it that I wrote. And it's creating this really nasty tension right now. And we're going to see more and more of this as the demand for these true crime podcasts continue to grow, because again, we can't get enough of these things.
Yeah, that sounds complicated, because I was thinking the same thing as you were talking about it, where it's like, well, she just, the podcaster just used that article in the research. Like,
Yeah.
she did all this research. Well, part of the research was just reading that article. That is really tough. And honestly, I mean, I don't know what the answer is, and not from a legal perspective, but it does definitely make me want to suggest that it would be a smart business move for people who are writing articles like that to go into a partnership actively with someone to create a podcast, or do it themselves, just to kind of like, nip it in the bud and not have to deal with someone else doing it. Like, if you're going to do this, either make a podcast because duh, or get someone else and partner with someone else to be like, hey, I'll give you this, or I'll sell you this if you make a podcast out of it, or whatever.
That's really clever, Katie. Yeah. So if you have the goods on this like true crime story of the century, by all means, put your article out in the Atlantic, but already start working behind the scenes. Like, go talk to Gimlet Media or one of these, big podcasting networks, and already start the process of creating that true crime podcast so that somebody else doesn't beat you to it. I like that. Very clever.
Yeah, I mean, obviously maybe not everyone wants to do that, but it's like, we know the popularity. Why not just take advantage and create your own additional business opportunity instead of getting, kind of undermined by it? But I don't know. I do feel bad, because that does stink that they were stealing all of that material, and I don't know what the answer is, but dang.
Well, I'm not presently aware of a court case yet, or certainly not one that's like been like risen to the level where it's in our collective public consciousness, of like a true crime podcast being sued for copyright infringement by some article writer.
Yeah.
And so like there's not a, and it'd be interesting to see like what fair use might dictate on something like this, because generally fair use gives a lot of leeway to when you're basically doing news reporting, like when you're helping like communicate a news story out there. But at the same time, fair use is less accommodating when you're creating something that's entertainment as opposed to like a news story. So what is a true crime podcast? Is it news reporting? Is it entertainment? Who knows? But if I had a true crime podcaster kind of come to me and say like, I'm thinking of doing this, what's the way to do it where I don't, where like my homage doesn't find its way into plagiarism land, or God forbid copyright infringement land? What I'm saying to this person, at least generally, is treat this like you would if you were writing a book report or a high school essay.
Yeah.
Cite your sources, attribute. If you're going to quote from something, make it clear that you're quoting and keep your quotations light. And be sure to integrate your own analysis along the way. If you feel like, much as if you were writing a high school book report, if you have quoted like 30 lines from somebody else's material, you're closer to being in like a copyright questionable land than something that is a unique piece of art, an original piece of art to you. And by the way, it's just the right thing to do. Putting the legal issues aside, like we need to support each other as creators. If you are just ripping off somebody else's hard work, you're gonna get nailed on Twitter. There's gonna be people who aren't happy that you did that.
Like, part of it almost sounds like the original writer is just kind of upset that he wasn't credited, that like he wasn't acknowledged for his work. And a simple crediting, even if she did read a whole paragraph or a whole page or whatever it is, by saying like, this is from this article, it could potentially have just solved the problem.
I can't tell you how many legal disputes, how many expensive legal disputes could have been averted had somebody just did something like that on the front end. But people who don't do those things on the front end are the reason why some lawyers have very expensive houses. We're going to take a quick break and bring on Sarah Elizabeth Haynes to talk all about her work as an indie creator. And we're going to get some Hamilton talk in there too, because obviously. Don't go anywhere. Keep listening to Break the Business. We'll be right back. Ryan Kairalla here. I hope you're enjoying the show, and I hope that you're getting a lot out of it. I do what I do because I care about creators like you. A lot. I've dedicated my career to helping creative professionals, entrepreneurs, and organizations move forward. I do it by hosting this program, and I'm also proud to do it in my legal practice. If you're a creative professional looking for solutions-oriented legal services to help you further your goals, I'd love to help. My firm RKPA does contracts, commercial law, copyright, trademark, and more. Visit rkpalaw.com to learn more. That's rkpalaw.com. Ryan A. Kairalla, PA, Miami, Florida.
Streaming services for Break the Business provided by LEK Entertainment. LEK Entertainment is a full-service entertainment company offering everything from consultations to full-scale events and productions, including audio and video productions, voiceovers, staged theatrical productions, script and music development, and streaming services. For more information, visit lekentertainment.com. LEK Entertainment wants to help you bring your story to life.
Thanks for supporting Break the Business. If you have a question or topic that you want us to discuss, email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com. You can follow the host, that's me, on Twitter at Ryan Kair, and you can follow the show at the BTB Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the show on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, and on all major podcast platforms. And now, let's get back to the show. Welcome back to Break the Business, everybody. Happy to have you on all the various places that you might be consuming this particular program, whether it is Facebook Live, Twitter Live, Twitch, YouTube Live, if it's on Sirius XM 145 Go Slam Radio, or if it's on any of the various podcasting platforms that are out there. If you are catching us in between the two true crime podcasts that you're checking out, we're happy to have you however you're consuming us. Let's bring out our guest this week. She is a New York-based indie singer-songwriter and violinist who is currently playing violin and viola in the national tour of Hamilton. Yay! She also released her second album, Castaway, earlier this year, and you can find out more about her work by visiting www.sehaynes, that's HAINES.com. We are thrilled to welcome Sarah Elizabeth Haynes on To Break the Business. Hello, Sarah.
Hi there. How are you guys?
Doing so great. Happy to have you here. I don't know if we made this abundantly clear in the first segment, but we are all absolutely nuts for Hamilton. And I do want to talk to you a lot about the music you make when you're not making Hamilton, because it's pretty terrific too. But have to ask this Hamilton question out the gate. We were actually debating this, Katie and producer Lauren and I. Mm-hmm. We were, and you're going to settle this for us, all right? We were debating what is the coolest and most fun song to play on violin of all the Hamilton songs. Now, before you tell us, I'll give you a chance to think about it. I want to go around our collective room here, and we're each going to make a guess. Now, I'm going to preface my guess by saying I am 100% positive that I know the correct answer.
Okay.
All right. There are a few things in this world that I've been more sure of, that I know what Sarah Elizabeth Haynes is going to say is the coolest violin song on Hamilton, and the answer is Yorktown, and I don't think it's close. But Katie, what do you think the best violin song is on Hamilton?
I was going to say the Reynolds pamphlet.
Oh, I didn't think of that one. I feel less certain now. Producer Lauren, pop in here for a second. Ooh, Reynolds. Oh, I didn't think of the Reynolds pamphlet. Oh, that's... Yes. No, I still feel good. I still feel confident. You can't back me off. Yorktown, when Hercules Mulligan comes out with the... Yeah, it's fabulous. All right, producer Lauren, what do you think the best violin/viola song in Hamilton is, the one that Sarah Elizabeth Haynes loves to play the most?
No, I already said I have no pick on this one. I've been told that it's an absolute marathon, and you basically just have to get your way through the show and then go, whoo, I made it.
See, now I'm afraid that you've given that answer, because now I feel like you're going to poison this, and now Sarah's going to say, "Oh yeah, every single song is the hardest one." No. I'm going to pin you down here.
You didn't ask hard. You said most fun.
Yeah.
And like no, and Sarah, like, we love you and we're glad you're here, but like, if you give us the every single song is equally awesome on violin, I'm going to walk out of the studio. All right, we got to know best violin song on Hamilton. Who's right?
So I will say it does change kind of depending on the day and how I'm feeling. I play the show 8 times a week. I've played Hamilton 975 times.
Wow. So
So
none of them are fun anymore. You just know them like the back of your hand.
so I will usually, like, when I'm asked this question, the first thing that comes to mind is Yorktown.
Yes! That's what I'm talking about.
There you go.
Hercules Mulligan.
Yeah.
Well done,
All
sir.
right.
Well
And
done.
All right. That's
you know, we have the dance break, and the strings really get to be like part of the rhythm. Like, we're part of the band in the whole show. I will say personally, I have like a soft spot in my heart for One Last Time, actually.
oh.
I love that
Because
song.
so I play
Oh.
violin and viola in the show, but actually I primarily play viola. And the beginning of George Washington's like address to his people when he's leaving office is this really beautiful 4-bar viola solo where it's literally only me playing. And it's this it used to be a terrifying moment. It's not as terrifying as it once was, but because it's just me and him speaking. Well, it's Hamilton speaking his words, but and so
Oh, yeah.
and also
Yeah.
the
I
both
didn't
the
even
George
think about
Washington and the understudies for George Washington on my tour are also really good friends. So it's like a, personal, like, touching moment. So I have a soft spot for One Last Time, but Yorktown is definitely the most fun to play consistently.
That's good. I was so afraid you were gonna talk yourself out of Yorktown and me being right. So glad that you stayed firm on that. Yorktown slaps on violin.
And Katie, actually, the Reynolds pamphlet is also super fun to play. We just don't play as much in the Reynolds
Yeah,
pamphlet.
no, that makes sense in retrospect. Like,
But-
going
Oh no!
through
Don't
the
you
song
start
again.
giving honorable mention to all of the co-hosts here. All right,
we make
Ryan
up
won.
for it
Run!
with
I won this
dancing.
puppy.
See, I just like to sing Reynolds pamphlet, and I
Yeah.
feel like it would just be a good time to just be in.
We have full choreography for that part in the string section. So we
That's-
have like
yeah.
we make up for the lack of playing with just dancing.
I appreciate that, and that sounds the most fun to me. So,
All right, Lauren, you're welcome to stick around, but I know you also have to finish Katie's quiz. However you want to divide your time. No, we need to know, Lauren, by the end of this, like, which brand
I
is yours.
know.
So you already took the quiz?
I did.
All right. Well, we're gonna save that for the end of the
I'm
show.
not saying anything.
Good. All right.
I kind of want to take this quiz now too. I'm gonna go check it
yeah,
out.
I want to know what you are too,
Well,
Sarah.
you're the one person who has to stay here, Sarah. It is super critical. I mean, I did
Once
get the
we learn
answer I
more about
wanted
you,
out of
I'll
you, but
guess.
we still have to talk about your awesome career as an indie creator. Because one of the things that I'm interested in, because we've never had somebody who has to divide their musical life so much between like this full-time job and then some of playing with the touring company, the Hamilton, while also being a creator of indie original music in your own right. How do you balance the two? How do you find time to write original music when I'm sure like you're spending all your time traveling and playing the viola for Hamilton?
Well, it's a great question. I really, I think that I need to have both. And I think that one kind of serves the other in a lot of ways. The first time I was a freelancer my whole career up until I started touring. And actually I started off touring with Les Mis, and I did 3 months on Les Mis, and then I moved to Hamilton after that. I only got to play 74 shows of Les Mis. So
It's my other favorite show, so I'm like geeking out right
I'm
now.
telling
very
you.
hard.
You're after our own heart here, Sarah.
but that's
Best
It's
violin
so-
song, One Day More?
oh yeah, probably.
Yes!
Really.
Oh, 2 for 2! I'm so good at this useless game.
How about empty chairs and empty tables? Are there
That
violins
one's
in that one?
nice. Also, what's the
I
one
Dreamed a
with the
Dream.
drink with me? Today's
Oh, yeah, that
come on.
one.
That one. That one's nice too. That has really beautiful solos all over it. But so yeah, what I was saying is, I found that like once I finally had a chance to only be doing one thing instead of the like 9,000 things that you do as a freelancer, just trying to cobble a living together, I finally had space to think about how I wanted to be a creative person in the world. And because I love playing musical theater, but when I'm playing somebody else's music, it's not, there's a limitation as to how far I can have my own voice within that. So it kind of gave me the gift of being like, here's your job. This is what you do. This is what you do every single day. But you also have the rest of the day when you're not playing the show to do whatever you want.
So having that routine and that thing that you had to do made you more creative, it sounds like.
Definitely. I mean, I didn't make a record until I was on tour. The first record that I made was after I had already been on tour. And I had been a member of bands in the past, and we had made records, and I love those records too. But this was the first time that like I, as an individual and as an artist, was like, okay, you have no limitations and no parameters except for what you are capable of and where you physically are. So what are you going to do with that? And that was definitely I needed to have that personal creative practice, because there's only, you know, it adds stability to the traveling and the, you know, you're in a different city every few weeks, and you're, you know, in different hotels and Airbnbs, and you need to kind of assert yourself in each of these new places as whoever you want to be. And I think that it helped me feel more sane in this like transient place.
So how much did the creative and production process of your album Castaway line up with your Hamiltonian duties? Like, are you writing on the bus? Are you laying down tracks in like a hotel room and putting up towels to like muffle the sound? I've seen artists do that, by the way.
Well, so Castaway actually, all of Castaway was recorded during the pandemic. So when we were not touring. However, most of Castaway was written before the pandemic, when I was still on the road. And actually, you know, I was lucky in that on Hamilton, there were a lot of other people who were also writers and songwriters and creative people. And I started this group for a little while where we would all get together, and like we would take one day and we'd try to just write as much new stuff as possible. And it was like good, bad, whatever, just like get it out there. And then we get together at the end of the day and share whatever we'd worked on. No judgment, no like really feedback, just kind of like, here's what I did today. And that was, I think, I don't remember exactly how many, but I think like 8 of the songs that ended up on Castaway were products of those sessions.
Wow.
And because it was just like a very open environment to share, but also this gives you this impetus to like be creative with a bit of a deadline, which I work well with deadlines. So it definitely helps to be like, okay, today this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it in front of other people. So you have no choice but to do it.
What would you say is the biggest lesson that you learned from the process of creating Castaway that like you could impart to other creators out there?
Oh, wow. I think Castaway for me was really like it was very important to make it, because it was the first time I felt very confident about stepping into my own voice and being very clear with who I was and who I wanted to be. And I think the pandemic, I mean, talk about, you know, having one job and being able to be creative, and then going from that to the pandemic where I really wasn't working and all I had was what I could do within the 4 walls of my apartment. So it was really, I think the thing that I learned is that taking the time and the space and having that inner reflection is really hard, but it's so necessary, and it's going to garner results that you would never have imagined if you didn't take that time and take that space and really like let the quiet moments in to be self-reflective and to be maybe even a little bit hard on yourself sometimes, but in a loving way. That's a long answer to
Well, and that last piece that you said there is a tricky balance. Katie, I know you probably counsel a lot of folks in your coaching practice on that exact topic, right? Finding the right balance between holding high expectations for yourself, being, as you said, hard on yourself, but still doing it in a loving way so that it doesn't kind of just lead to a dark spiral for you. Like, Katie, what do you tell people in your coaching practice to like kind of navigate that balance? I'd love to hear what Katie has like relative to what Sarah's insight was.
Well, I think honestly just a different experience for everyone. So like the biggest thing is you have to find out where that line is for yourself, because often people will try to look towards other people. Well, they're doing this, or they're doing all of these things, or they're here in their career, so I should be doing this and whatever it is. But you're the only one who can figure out like what is it, how does your brain work around setting goals or around critique or around, creating, like, I love the exercise where you're just like putting whatever down and showing it. Like for some people that's exactly what they need. For some people it could wreck them. Like everyone just responds to things differently. So I think the first thing is really just that self-awareness and acknowledging, like, where do you go when you do these things? Like, does it help you? Does it hurt you? Or what are the thoughts that are coming up, positive or maybe not so positive, so that we can like start to put practices in that are serving you and that are going to move you forward and not coddle you like a baby, but also not be like throwing you into the sharks and being like, oh, well, get over it. Good luck. Because that's not necessary,
Are you hearing a lot of your own experience in that insight, Sarah?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because in a way it's kind of like it like became this kind of meta thing, but that's also a little bit about what the song Castaway is actually about. It's about like getting away from your own like island of expectation and kind of just being forgiving and being open to exploring and like new experiences, and maybe even other people. If like sometimes collaboration is the best way to get out of your own head, right? Yeah. It's, you literally have somebody else giving you ideas that you'd never have. So,
and especially when you're touring with like the best company of singers and musicians and dancers on the planet. I mean, what a great laboratory to not just compare art on, but just to kind of have that support system around you. That's exciting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I've also been told, Sarah, that you like to cook. And I got to hear some cooking insights from you. I'm going to paint this scenario for you, okay? You've come back from an extended run on one of these tours. You've done like 30 dates, and you're finally back in your kitchen again for the first time in weeks or months. You are, for the first time in weeks or months, eating something that's not out of a box lunch or out of like some greasy spoon somewhere, and you're in your own kitchen. What is the first thing that you want to cook for yourself?
That is a really funny question because I actually just got back to my apartment.
What did you eat today?
What did you? That's right. That was just a long way of saying, what did you have for lunch today?
Well, so the last time I was home, I made bolognese. Like the Marcella has done like 5-hour, the works with the white wine and the milk and I had frozen it. I had frozen half of it when I made it the last time. So I actually just took that out of the freezer and reheated it.
Nice.
But it was, I mean, that's like proper, like slow cooked bolognese is just absolutely delicious. And that's what I had for dinner. I roasted some Brussels sprouts and cauliflower to go with that, and I put it over linguine. And that was a very, very satisfying first meal back in my space in my apartment.
Oh my God. And you painted the picture so well for it. Like I'm like, I can practically taste like the bolognese with the Brussels sprouts. I am a big fan of this. So one of the things I've been seeing a lot on Twitter that is just like all over the place now is this idea of like cancelable takes. People are like, post your most cancelable take about personal finance, your most cancelable movie opinion or something like that.
Like a new word for hot take, basically.
Right. So, but like a take that's so hot that you're so convinced it's true, but everybody else is going to be like, oh, come on. So I'm wondering, Sarah, what is your most cancelable food take? Like, what is the one food where you're like, I swear by this as a cooking item, and I know you're all going to cancel me, but I know I'm right?
Oh, wow. I was unprepared for this question.
Unlike the other one where it was just all you had to do was figure out what you had for lunch today or dinner.
I mean, I don't love celery, which as like I know that doesn't sound like a big deal, but as like part of the tradition of like mirepoix and like all these different bases for different soups and stews and stuff, like you always use celery, and I'm always just like, do I really have to? I really, but so I usually reduce any celery ingredient by like at least half, if not to a third of what is originally called for, because I know the flavor is important, but I just don't like it, and I don't like having it in the house. And I don't know. I also don't like watercress, and that's
What about
just tastes.
cucumbers?
Ooh, I love a good cucumber.
I think I aspire to like cucumbers more than I actually do.
I was sensitive to them, so I thought I would ask.
She tells people she likes cucumbers because she wants to be appreciated for it.
I like the like quick pickling cucumbers, but I think cucumbers on their own kind of taste just like slime.
enough.
One of my favorite follows on TikTok right now is this guy named B. Dylan Hollis, who his whole thing on TikTok is he makes recipes from like cookbooks like that are 100 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like the most like, just completely unhinged, insane recipes. And most of them are terrible. And like, he just like, he'll try it and like immediately spit it out. And every once in a while he hits on something where he's like, I'm going to eat this all the time. This is incredible. And the first, one of the first times he did that was when he mixed chocolate and potatoes and made a chocolate potato cake. And on paper, that sounds ridiculous, but damn it if it wasn't like the most incredible thing he's ever eaten. Chocolate potato cake. Are there two ingredients in your cooking experience, Sarah, where you're like, I know it doesn't sound like these things should go together, but I do it and it works?
Man, that sounds like chocolate hummus to me, which also doesn't sound good.
What?
It is good.
What?
I've never had it.
Chocolate-
I can't.
have you-
I just
not
look at it
hummus,
and I'm
but
like,
have you ever had chocolate covered potato chips? They're really good, which is basically
well,
the
yeah,
same
but then
thing.
because that's you get like the greasy, salty.
Producer
And,
Lauren with her thumbs up in the green room. Well, I know producer Lauren loves dipping French fries in the Wendy's Frosty, which is kind of
That's
the same
delicious.
thing.
It is the
Yeah,
same
no,
thing.
that's delicious.
Honey. I don't do the frosty thing. I dip them in honey.
Potatoes and
that's
honey.
good too.
Yes.
Interesting.
Um,
Potatoes are the best food ever, I think.
I will
Potatoes
occasionally
just-
make a dish with like lentils and a can of tomatoes and peanut butter. And a little bit of
Whoa.
coconut milk.
Interesting.
It's almost like a Thai peanut sauce. It turns into kind of like a Thai peanut sauce ish thing, but like when
Yeah.
you think like tomatoes and peanut butter together, you're kind of like, ugh.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I
I could see
promise.
how it could be
Good.
good though.
I know, like I'm reverse engineering because like peanut butter works with a lot of things. Like I think because we all grew up as kids with like peanut butter and jelly, we just associate peanut butter. It has to be sweet things, but peanut butter remarkably versatile.
Yeah.
It works in a lot of different time zones, and I can see it. I think I'm adventurous to give that a shot, but chocolate and potatoes, that one would take me more time. So let me. So you've been very accommodating with us on food opinions, but we do want to give people a chance to check out your music again. You can find out more about our guest work by visiting sehaines.com. Can you tell us just a little bit about what people will expect when they check out your album Castaway?
yeah, it's a bit of a ride. There's like a bit of an emotional roller coaster happening. It starts off, it hits pretty hard right at the beginning. Actually, the first track is a spoken word track, which was inspired by Patti Smith because I listened to horses, like only horses, for like 2 weeks straight in the middle of the pandemic. And then I called my producer and I was like, we're putting a spoken word track on the album. And he was like, okay. And that was basically like our conversation about it. And I read him the text and he's like, yeah, no, we're doing this. This sounds great. And then we went back and forth. I was kind of hesitant to put it first off because I wasn't sure if it was gonna like scare people away a little bit, but then I realized that it was necessary to have that as the first, feeling to kind of color the rest of the album, because it becomes like this thing that it starts off as this very like a hard outlook, and it kind of softens into something that becomes much more like loving and forgiving by the end of the record. And that's, if you listen to the whole record from start to finish, which I usually think of albums that way when I make them, but I know that's not necessarily how they're consumed these days. And there's it's a lot about just personal autonomy but also being able to feel many different ways at the same time. I've been thinking a lot. I was thinking a lot when I was making this album about how we're so expected to kind of force ourselves into being one thing and being like easily digestible. And that's just so far away from anybody's lived experience. And I wanted to try and capture some of that. It's hard to do it in 40 minutes, but here we are.
I've enjoyed listening to it. Again, we are chatting with Sarah Elizabeth Haynes, indie singer-songwriter and violinist and violaist. How do you say that?
Violist.
Violist. I like that. Makes more sense. And violist for the touring company of Hamilton. Find out more about her work by visiting sehaynes.com. Sarah, this has been an absolute treat. I really commend you for tolerating our nonsense for the last 30 minutes. Before we let you go, one last question. Do you have any last tips for the indie creators out there to help them move their careers forward?
I think just be open to as many varied experiences as possible. That's the thing that has helped me the most, is just saying yes and a lot when it feels good and when it feels right, because you can't say yes to everything, or else you just have nowhere to go because you have no energy to grow in any direction. But that's been the thing that's helped me the most. Actually, I'm starting a podcast. Just, you were talking about that earlier, and it's going to be about hobbies, about what people do, what successful creative people do just for themselves. Because I think that's something that we don't talk about a lot, because we're always, so I appreciated your question about the cooking, because I thought, it's fun to talk to people about the things they just really like.
I love that topic for a podcast. I think you're going to get so many like crazy celebrities who want to do that, because like celebrities hate talking about, if they're a movie star, they hate talking about their movies. But if they're into crocheting, they just want somebody to ask them about crocheting so bad. So this seems like a winner to me. Sarah.
I hope so. We'll see. I have to start.
Let us know how it goes. Please don't be a stranger. We'd love to have you on again real soon. And thanks so much for joining us this week.
Thank you so much for having me. It was really fun talking to you.
Sarah Elizabeth Haynes, everybody. All right. We have about 2.5 minutes left, and the world needs to know. We've all been waiting. Producer Lauren, get back in here. Let us know how you did on Katie's quiz.
Okay. I actually took it multiple times, but the first time I know.
This is like when people do the Harry Potter quiz and they're like, I didn't get Gryffindor, I'm going to take it again.
No, okay. So it wasn't so much that.
Oh, no.
And I mute myself.
Okay.
It wasn't so much that as it was when I was doing it, there were questions where I was like, it could be one of those.
Yeah.
And so at the end when I got it, I was like, let me go back and see what would have happened if I put the other answer in. So it wasn't so much cheating. But the first answer I got, which is what I thought I was going to be, is the inspiration.
Oh.
Okay.
And I agree with Ryan that, like, at my heart, I'm always an entertainer. But I think that because it's targeted towards musicians and I'm more on the like actor side of things, I do but I don't create my own content. I like to be a blank slate that other people can create on. It's hard to be moldable clay, as it were. And so when I take it from that angle, I'm like, well, I'm not creating stories to make you anything. I'm playing other people's stories, which is a different way to approach things entirely. Yeah. But again, when I went back, I was the advocate, which isn't, in my opinion, all that far off.
Yeah.
And
Those
then
make sense too.
just for Ryan, I was like, all right, I'm going to go to my answers that will bring up, of course, the entertainer. So that was my Gryffindor right there, where I was like, hold on. And by the way, I'm a Hufflepuff, not a Gryffindor.
Yeah, that tracks.
Well, I'm glad that you said that, though, because the quiz is only going to populate one answer, but I believe, and in version 2.0 of the quiz, we're going to have a main type and a subtype, because not everyone will necessarily have two types, but I definitely think that there are a lot of people out there who embody both. Like I even think about Bo Burnham, like he's classic entertainer because he's a comedian, but he also writes a lot about mental health. So then he would be a subtype advocate. So maybe you are both and you just needed to explore both of those things.
Yeah, I think like there were little squares and I wanted to check off a few of them. Anyway, we'll talk about that off the air.
It's been a thrill finding out what Lauren is, and everything she said makes perfect sense there. I want to know more about what some of our listeners and viewers are. Go to katiezaccardi.com, take the quiz, and let us know. Email us at breakthebusiness@gmail.com or tweet at me at RyanKair. Tweet at Katie at KatieZaccardi, right?
Yeah, but don't tweet at me. I'm not on Twitter anymore. DM me on Instagram or
DM
tag me on
her.
Instagram at Katie Zaccardi.
Yes, and let us know how you did on that quiz. Our thanks to Sarah Elizabeth Haynes, thanks to producer Lauren, thanks to Katie Zaccardi, and thanks to all of you, viewers and listeners, for checking us out on Break the Business. Mwah! We'll see you next week.